You are now entering the LuxCore Studios. And you've secured a seat for the Protecting Your Radius podcast. Here, we build connections from your contracting profession to some of the top bleeding edge products and services. Don't get deterred. Let's not delay. Here is your host, Nathan Downs.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Protecting Your Radius podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Downs, and on today's episode, I have a very dear and special friend in the studio with me. He is one of my mentors in the business. He's been in the business for decades and decades and decades. So I'm going to kind of kick this thing off and let a lot of you that may not know Randy Ward from here in Kellyville, Oklahoma now. But we're gonna talk to Randy about your story. So Randy, welcome, buddy.
Oh, thanks, Nate. It's great to be here.
Good to see you, man. And this is totally impromptu. So as we start to get off the rails, I mean, he was in my office talking to me about some products and some orders. And I said, we need to talk about gate life and let everybody know. So with that being said, Randy, tell us about your story, man. How you got into the business, just from the beginning to now.
Okay. Well, it's kind of crazy. No college for this dude. You know, right after high school, I moved from Sacramento to Tulare, California, where I had a girlfriend who's now been my wife for 44 years, and started doing dairy construction. 17 years old. Did that for 8 years, considered myself quite the cement guy, actually. But what I didn't realize is how much fence was, at the time, how much fence was part of my deal. We did pipe and cable miles, literally miles and miles of pipe and cable fence. Those on the West Coast are very familiar with dairy construction. We did, set posts for shades, buildings, all kinds of stuff, hay barns. So that was just part of side of what we did. And my younger brother, he worked for a fence company in Sacramento. And in 84, I know it was a long time ago, most of you guys weren't born, but in 84, we kind of started having a slowdown. The dairy industry had like all government programs. They could just produce all they wanted, and the government would buy it all. Well, under President Reagan, they said, no, you're going to have to sell it yourself. So they had this kill program, and a lot of the dairy started downsizing, which meant my job downsized also. And I'd go to work and we had been talking about moving back to Sacramento where my family was. And I come home one day and I said, wow, I'm out of work. And me and Judy had been kind of discussing moving to Sacramento. She's totally not on board because all of her family obviously was in Tulare. And to be perfectly honest with you, she said, well, I've just been praying that if we were supposed to be here, you'd have a lot of work. And so I think you should call your brother. So I called my brother, Sandy, who was working for Clark Whittaker at the time. And this will blow some of your mind. He told me that that was on a Friday. I was there on Monday morning, 7 o'clock. And he told me to ask for $5 an hour. And I know, hilarious, right? And I'm being interviewed by Tom Cadman, who out there, he works for SAS or SCS. He says, well, what do you need? I said, $6 an hour. And he looked at me kind of funny, but he hired me. And I worked for a week. We went home that weekend. We moved all of our stuff out of our house and moved to Sacramento and stayed with my mother. I was 25 years old. We had 3 little kids. And went to work for $6 an hour. In just a little bit, I welded gates for them for a couple years. During that time, we started doing gate operators, and they kind of pulled me into that. And so I ran my own truck doing odd things and did all the access control and worked for them up until 1992. And my brother and I and a salesman from Clark Cadman at that time, we started a company called Viking Fence. Viking Fence and Automatic Gates. That's what it was called. Okay. And the salesman, I mean, we started at a bad time and we were broke, but we we did pretty good. We did okay. The salesman left, and then my brother got an offer to make actual money, and he accepted that. And so we just kept on going, and we built a pretty good business. We in 2005, or excuse me, when was it? Yeah, 2005. We had the business for 13 years at that time, and I sold it to my brother, and we moved to Oklahoma. And I took a year off. It's kind of funny. I was kind of like the fence business. I was so sick of it. I was so sick of trying to find help. We did a lot of commercial work. I was so sick of trying to collect money. I was just like anything but that. So I took a year off. We built a home in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, Welling, actually. And I actually went to Dallas to look at an opportunity to buy into this little franchise, Dr. Vinyl. It's these kind of fixed cars at these mobile deals. Anyway, I apologize for rattling. But anyway, I went down there with this friend of mine who was in the business, and he was going to usher me around. And we met at IHOP or someplace, and they had a sign there where the TFA was having a breakfast.
And the TFA was?
Texas Fence Association.
Okay, perfect.
And all I wanted to do was go in that room. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I'd been a CFCA member, but I really had never got involved. And that's all I could think about the rest of the day. And I watched what he did and how he did it, and I'm looking and I'm like, so I was supposed to spend the night with him. We're going to get up and do the same thing the next day. And we were having dinner, and it was a Wednesday like this. I was actually going to go to church with him that night. And I said, I'm going to go home. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm a fence guy. That's all I can think about all day. I'm a fence guy. Mm-hmm. And from that point, I dove right in, and I embraced it. I'm proud of it. And it's my career. It's who I am. Just a fence guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's crazy. So you knew that you were like destined to, one thing I've always tell people, and it's kind of funny, was because I felt this way after that I had worked at Ameristar for 7 years. And I've described this to a lot of people online that I said, like once you get in the fence business, the longer you're in, it's like a vortex, and it sucks you in until you've been here for like 5-10 years, and then there's a good chance you're never getting out. So
exactly,
for all you young guys watching and listening, if you get in the vortex, yeah, exactly, Randy's right. That's what it's going to look like. It is truth. It is truth. So you come out here, you're in Oklahoma. You start working. Well, you eventually get to the point where you're over in Springdale, Arkansas.
Yes, I got a job at a manufacturer of chain link, General Wire.
Yep. And they put me in the Springdale office, which was about a 60-mile drive. Did that every morning, and for 2 years. And I went to work for them in 2006. And at the end of, right at 2 years, they shut down the branch. It's, that was 2007 or 2008. I'm sorry. And, we all know what the economy was right there. So they shut down that branch. And so I started trying to put in gate operators. I'm such an idiot. I didn't even think about filing unemployment, right? I just trying to find work. And I did okay. We made it through the winter. But one of my good friends, and I did some work for Modern Fence and Supply over there in Springdale. And Steve Milligan, the owner at that time, the Milligan family, they owned it 60 years. And he offered me a general manager's position, and I accepted it. And it was a great opportunity. I loved that job. I enjoyed it tremendously. He loved the AFA, so he got me involved in the AFA. He says, hey, man, I think this is important. You need to get involved in the chapter. And I did. And hence, my AFA background. But and then I worked for them for 10 years. And then my son, Rob, he has a
construction company in Sapulpa where we live. And he was like, Dad, I need you. And I'm like, well, so I left that job. They had kind of a retirement party like thing for me. And I told Robbie, I said, well, we got to join the AFA, man. I mean, we're still going to play with fences. That's what I do. And so we sold out. We just built a house in Sapulpa. And I worked for him for 3 years, and I'm like, the economy, he was slowing down. I said, you need to cut some overhead. I'm ready to get back in the fence business. And I went to work at Roger Vermessen, a general manager at Tulsa. He offered me an outside sales position, and I took it. That was a year ago, and
yeah,
I get to hang out with Nathan Downs, the famous Nathan Downs.
Wow. So that was Binford Supply, where you started working a year ago, who's now part of FSG, which is Fence Supply Group.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Okay. So yeah, a whirlwind of experience, right? And one of the things that we've talked about in the past that I think a lot of people would be really interested in knowing, Randy, is like your 40 years plus in the business, but specifically 40 years in the gate side of the business. Like, talk about what iterations of operators and what that looked like at the beginning. Like it makes me think of, as a younger guy in that division of the business, since I've been working on gates since 2011, right? So like when I see a Stanley with a bunch of relays, I'm like, what is this and why? Was this ever thought to be a good idea? But so like kind of walk through things that have interested you and you've seen advent since the 80s to where we're at today now with the technology and stuff.
Sure. Well, our telephone systems needed a dial tone. That's one big difference. Yeah, right.
Oh, butt sets.
Oh, yeah. I still have a butt set in my truck. I don't know why. Yeah. But yeah, we started off installing Stanleys, like I think a lot of us did. They had plug and play relays. I mean, if something broke, maybe your contactor's bad or you got a relay over here bad. They had a little disc break, right?
Right.
Little disc. Relay popped, pulled the level, stopped the gate. There's your break, At the time, Larco, which became All-Star, which became, who knows, probably under the LiftMaster umbrella somewhere.
Right.
They actually had 2 circuit boards. They had a power board and they had a logic board. You had to be careful because they could plug in either way, and if you plug them the wrong way, poof, it was the magic smoke that Philip Doyle talks about, which made when the smoke, they're all ran by smoke, right? You let the smoke out of the board, they're dead. So then, we began working on door kings, and at that time, door kings were gray, and light gray, not the dark gray.
Not the dark,
and
right.
the circuit board was on the top. They changed that because the sun was baking them, but they were circuit boards, and but back then, we didn't worry about hitting a kid. We just worried about hitting cars. Mm-hmm. So our biggest concern was loops. We were loop. Yeah, that was a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, as we started as gate operators and access control became more prominent, across every type of, then you started getting to homes where, originally it was a lot more commercial, multifamily type stuff, apartments and so on and so forth. But now we got homes, schools, all these different places that have some type of access control. Maybe they have ingress, egress, points where they have to worry about these things. You've seen the development of the safety standards in UL 325 in ASTM F2200. So talk a little bit about that. Because even that, if we think about it, it's even changed since 2016, since 2018. So iterations are beginning to develop faster and faster, I think. And again, this is just from my little bit of 10 years of experience, but I think it's accelerating. Would you agree? Where the safety's gone and where it's going?
Oh, 100%. Guys like me, You know, I mean, you can't fix stupid, right?
Right.
And that's why all of these things have came about, right? I remember in 2000 when UL 325 came on board, our Betty Mullen, who owned Incon Electronics in Hayward, who, shout out to them, they trained me. I make a good living. I've made a good living because of Incon Electronics. They're a fabulous company. But she took that so seriously. She would, at the advent of 2000, she would not sell us a gate operator without a Miller Edge, period. We didn't worry about photo eyes so much, but it had to have an edge. And I remember I did a job in Oakland, and we screened the gate. We screened the fence. I mean, we were doing everything the right way. We put an edge on the back of that door king. It was a 9100. Couldn't make it work. I called them. I'm like, how do I make this work? They're like, I don't know. Because there was no place on the board to put it. You know, I mean, right. Your gate was made to open, you know. And I was just talking to Tim Nordstrom about this the other day when we were at AFA University. And this was such an awesome company. I called them up. I said, hey, man. They're like, I don't know. I said, well, I'm in Oakland. They said, well, come on down. We'll pull one out of a box. We'll figure it out. And they did. And, you know, we figured it out. We ended up putting it on the stop button and whatever.
Yeah.
And, but that's how early it was. I was fortunate because in California and through Betty, they took it more seriously. I mean, we didn't know all the 4 inches and 2 1/4 and all this, you know, like we do now. But when I came out here, it meant nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh, where's our reverse loops? Oh, we don't do those. Oh, well, what about beams? Oh, don't worry about that. They won't pay for that anyway. And hence, that's why 2016 happened.
Right.
It's because people don't, I mean, really, UL 325 was supposed to do all that back then. But our industry, you know, fence guys by nature in a hurry.
Yeah.
You know, and those little extra stuff takes time. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I hope you Okies out there watching or listening to this or listen to what Randy's talking about with the safeties and stuff. Because I feel like even as you say that, I'm like, kind of feels that way sometimes when I go out to gates now. Just put in, you know.
It still happens. Yeah. I talked to a customer the other day, and I just out of curiosity, he bought a U.S. automatic, and I said, so how do you mount your photo beams? Do you weld something on? Do you know, he says,
put a resistor.
He bypassed them. And I'm not going to say how he bypassed them, but I'm like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, I said, so what do you do with all of them? I mean, I thought maybe you, like you said,
same.
He didn't even do that. He said, yeah, if you need one, I got some in the shop. So, but to be fair, I went to Texas. I was in Katy, Texas. I seen a brand new, beautiful gate on a V-track, horizontal rails, that far apart.
Yep.
You know, on the whole fence, and it's like,
just literally like a giant scissor.
Yes.
I mean, like it even looked like it. When you showed me that picture, and you're like, what do you think's wrong with this? And I said, oh, okay. He's testing me because I have every certification known to man except for operations manager. Thanks, Josh Glover. I know he's already thinking that as he's listening to this or watching it.
That's a great one to get, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Josh Glover is going to be on the podcast, guys, because we have some stuff that we've been talking about. And that guy is a certified genius just in business, let alone our industry. I mean, he is one of the smartest dudes that I've ever met in this business. And that's one thing, Randy, we'll kind of get in that too, because I think what I've noticed, even when I got in the business, 15 years ago, I was always impressed because at Ameristar, we were real fortunate to like bring in contractors, right? Like, so we'd bring them into Tulsa, show them the operations, show them the manufacturing plant. You know, it was really more of a, puff up our chest, show us how awesome we are. But it was true. I mean, you come to the plant, you've been there multiple times. You can't leave and not be massively impressed with
Agreed.
the operation, with how things flow, what Eddie's vision was, with the execution from Mark and Bill and Scott,
Barry.
all these guys, and Barry. Oh my gosh. I mean, look at what had changed over time. And these guys just murdered it. I mean, in a good way. But from a business perspective, I remember bringing in owners from, I covered the west half of the United States, right? So we would bring in owners from all these West Coast fence companies and distributors and stuff. And I was so shocked. Often I would sit there as a 20-year-old dude going, these guys don't seem like fence guys, right? Like my perception myself, even when I started selling Montage and got into the business, was it felt like, fence guys is for the lower rung ladder. It's like the guys I run into at Lowe's or something like that, where they got a pickup truck, Jim Bob's got 5 teeth missing, great welder. But, you're not really want Jim Bob showing up with your daughter at home, as you get older and stuff like that. So, but just the professionalism in all those things. And I know you've been heavily involved in the American Fence Association. So when you say AFA, the American Fence Association, and what that looks like and what it's changed into and stuff. So being a past president of the entire association, and of course being multi-time chapter president for the Midwest that we're a part of and everything. Tell us about that journey when you went to Modern Fence, over 10 years ago, and you started getting involved in the AFA, and what people maybe a Tony Thornton, where they had taken it. And then where someone now, with Michael Reed and the whole organization that we have at the top there, what do you walk us through that? What does that look like then, and where are we going now?
Well, I'm basically in the Tony moment. So in 2006, when I was with General Wire, I went to my first meeting. It was a Midwest chapter meeting, and I met Mike Robinson, who's a past president.
Yep.
And he was a chapter governor at the time, or chapter president. And so I began getting involved with that, and it was just like you said, Nathan. I mean, you just start meeting at these meetings, these extremely college-educated, successful businessmen that are running fence companies, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of guys that get out there and they get their degree, and they're not having fun with that degree. I have a couple friends over in Arkansas that are just brilliant, and gave it all up to start a fence company because they loved it, and they've been very successful. Like Josh, you were talking about Josh.
Yeah,
Josh, dude, he is a rock star in our business. I mean, he was a director last year. He filled in. We had somebody step away, and Josh filled in for a year. And in that year, I mean, you guys have seen where he's taken our social media and all this stuff. It's just incredible. I mean, stuff that we didn't think about, a young guy like Josh thinks about. But anyway, I got off track. But so I was, Tony Thornton was my Door King rep,
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. That's where I met Tony when I was with General Wire. And we hit it off. He has been a dear friend and a mentor through this whole AFA journey. I couldn't have done it without it. I wouldn't have done it without him. Mm-hmm. He kind of dragged me along every place. And but we went, so during Mike Robinson's tenure, they were unhappy with the current management company. The AFA doesn't carry a bunch of employees. Back then it had none. Tony Thornton was actually the first employee that the AFA had in a long time. It's ran by a management company, which when you get into the know, you understand why, because we're all volunteers and we don't have time to do all those things. But Tony, he took us when they had no idea where we were at. And then he is in Las Vegas for our first convention that he's at. I mean, he's been executive director for 3 months. We're talking about a fence guy thrown into an executive director position, and was a nervous wreck, thought he'd get fired, killed it. And along with our current management team, which is Fusion, and they do a wonderful job. And he continued to grow us. And a lot of these certifications, like we had CAGOI, the Certified Gate Operator Installer, and that's through IDA. Which we still, if you have that certification, keep it. It's a great cert. I have it. I keep it. Just renewed it, actually. But then, we saw that we needed more. We needed to have that, just not the one, but another one, because some of the states require, they have to have a couple of them, different certifications. Tony grew this amazing. And Michael Reed, our current executive director, Tony needs some credit for that too, because Tony hired him as a consultant to the American Fence Association.
Right.
And he would come in and Michael took us, he taught us how to have a strategic plan and how to execute it,
Execute it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That word right there. And we did. And so when Tony decided to move in a different direction, we put together a committee, and we visited with Michael Reed. Michael Reed was one of many. And the one thing that cool, and I'm kind of getting off track here, but one of the things that came out of our committee is what we realized, that executive director position, what Tony really loved about that was education.
Yep.
And what kind of what wore him down was wearing two hats, because he loved this. And through COVID and everything, Tony, he took us through some crazy time. You want to learn how to cut a budget? You get with Tony Thornton, because dude, he'll make you, him and Dame Ramsey, he's got you on beans and rice, right? So we cut all of our expenses. And then when we were going through this process, our committee, we talked about that, because Nick Reich had also applied for that position.
Yep.
And when we did this algorithm that was based off points, and we had 3 top people, and one of them was Nick Reich. And so us in a committee, when we were going through that, we're like, we need an executive director with 2 of these candidates' experience and leading a association. But man, we need this part too. And neither one of those guys can provide it. So we worked through the budget. We're like, where can we steal money in here, and blah, blah. And we hired Michael Reed, who you guys will get to know more and more through Fence Tech. He is one of the smartest guys I've ever met, present company excluded, of course. But he's brilliant. Mm-hmm. But what he doesn't have is what Nick has.
Right.
Nick is passionate. He is a lifetime fence guy. He is brilliant in access control. And he's a great speaker. He's full of energy, and probably a lot of you guys already know Nick, but he's phenomenal. So
not to take away from Nick has every certification as well, because he reminded me last time we saw each other that I did not have operations management. And that is correct. So good job, Nick.
I don't have that one either.
You'll have a bigger tag at Fence Tech than me. And for all of our new friends that I haven't met yet, when we see you at Fence Tech in Oklahoma City here at the beginning of March, you'll understand what I'm talking about, the name tag. So my badge is ridiculously long. It goes all the way down to my waist from all these certifications. And
when you walk in the men's room, you flip it over your shoulder.
It's true. Think you're somebody special, Randy. That's what I always got from the old guard over the past years. Like, oh, look at this young guy. He must think he's special. I'm like, all right, whatever. I passed all those tests.
That's right.
So I deserve these. I deserve these badges. But no, Nick is brilliant. And I think that it takes a lot of foresight to see that the advantage of having someone like Tony knew the business, right? But he had to learn the association stuff. Michael knows the association stuff. And for all of you guys that haven't met Michael Reed, when the chapter presidents were going through at mid-years this year in Oklahoma City at the end of July, we had the board of directors for the entire association and then all the chapter presidents out there. And some of those exercises we went through, like strategic planning and stuff. I mean, it was that was next level. Like I'd never seen anything like that. And I go, and to imagine to lead a group of, I don't know, what were we talking? Probably 40 people, including the fusion staff. I mean, there's at least 40 people there.
Yeah. And all type A personalities.
Yeah. We're all the boss. Everybody's got an opinion. We get it, but like, it was just like that mind meld of like, it was incredible to see it happening as a leader, but also on top of that, to see someone like Michael, like take the reins. And even afterwards, it's really funny, was he called me about a special project that I brought up. Like, of course I run my mouth. And then he's like, that's a good job for you, Nathan. And I said, I appreciate that. I just started my own company like 2 minutes ago. So I really need to make sure that this baby like goes. And I knew that there would be other things, hence like what we're doing now. Right. I knew that down the road, there would be other opportunities that I really wanted to focus on instead of take a special project for the association. But that leadership for someone to be able to have, to not know me, barely, just meet me and go like, hey, you had a good idea. I want you to run with this. I want you to do this. I was like, it just impressed me as a chapter president going, man, like that's leadership. Like that's taking the bull by the horns and making something happen, which I think, you start looking at Randy, and you've been around, there's other associations. There's even other associations that popped up. Specifically, I think of like Brian Fredrickson, what he's doing with the Fence Workers Association and some of these other entities that have started because they're looking for ways to engage with today's fence contractor. And maybe the AFA in the past hadn't really connected across the board with everyone where they felt like they were being heard, or they felt like they could be a part of it. But now I see like what Josh has done as a board of director and making that presence known and integrating in social media and all those things. We're seeing these things and trying to show where the association is going. Like, why do we have certifications? Like, and so you've been through these, Randy, and you're certified and everything for the most part, just like I am. But like, even what Tony started a couple years ago when we did like the fence contractor business school. So for the CFC, and I told you when we were done, like after we took the tests, it's the hardest freaking test. I've taken securities tests. Like that was harder than a securities test. Like you either knew business and fence and gates and all this, or you didn't know it at all.
Insurance, workers'
man,
OSHA.
I mean, it's everything.
Accounting.
Like how, I ain't even gonna get into it. That's a Josh Glover episode right there. But, I was impressed with just, that was a great example, a great springboard for what the association was doing and proving with the certification process and what Todd and Sarah and everyone had started.
Sure.
And it was from Tony and, everyone having those conversations, the boards at the time. You're the president, of the entire association, and everyone's pushing these things along, make things a focal point. So with that being said, we're a couple weeks away from everyone coming to our turf here in Oklahoma. Now, unfortunately, it's not in Tulsa, but it's in Oklahoma City, hour and a half down the road. So let's talk about that, man. I mean, you've gone to a lot of fence decks, probably over 15 or somewhere around there, right?
I've been to a bunch.
So what is it about fence tech that excites you, or that really, like, what does that whole experience mean to you over time? Like when you first went, your first time, all the way till now, let's say 15 years later.
Sure. My first one I ever went to was 2006. I had never been to a fence tech, and that's when I had decided I was going to, get back into fencing. So I thought, well, I'm going to go, and I was blown away. I mean, I walked in, I'd been to the Reno show, the West Coast Fence Show.
Okay,
and I thought that was pretty impressive. And it is. You guys should go if you ever get the opportunity. But this one just blew my mind. And I was a little intimidated. I really didn't know a lot of people. But what I found out is I knew more people than I thought. Because in this business, we become friends with all of our vendors. Our vendors are our friends. They help us in business. And I got to see a lot of those people, and they introduced me. And, of course, I'd been gone for a year, so how you doing? And then I think I missed a couple after that, but then I've been everyone since. And to me now, when I go, it's a family reunion. I mean, I look forward to every one of them because you meet new people, you meet new friends. If I can go back to just a quick second on Josh Glover. I mean, so Sam Williams, he's just now not president. He was last year's president, and that guy had more adversities than I can't even imagine, and he killed it. I mean, he was the best president I've had in my tenure, and I've seen some good ones. Sam was absolutely phenomenal. But one of the things he did is because of what you said earlier, Nathan, people weren't being heard, and all these social platforms were going on. And hey, man, we're a bunch of old guys. I don't even have a Facebook. And Sam reached out to Josh because, Josh is vocal on those things and said, I think you got the wrong idea about us. I got an opening. Would you come and be a director? And just that type of leadership and encouraged to do that. And he didn't do it all on his own. He could have, but he asked the board of directors, hey, I want to bring in this guy. And we're like, yeah. And he was so beneficial this year, just unbelievable. But anyway, he's just one of them. There's gobs of them, and there's gobs of them out there. We're getting younger every year, and we love it. We didn't have podcast,
Right. I mean, in the fence industry, and especially in the gate industry, but in the fence industry, this is all
brand
a couple
new,
years
dude.
old.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Everest and Sean King were the pioneers of this stuff, and being friends with those guys, looking up to what they've done, and to think of, even having partners for this show from day one, it's like, I make no bones about it. Like, I understand we're standing on the back of giants. We're standing on their shoulders.
Dude, I love podcasts.
So.
I mean, this is so exciting for me because I'm a podcast junkie.
I am too.
And, now that I would try and watch. I'm not a YouTube guy. I'm just now figuring that. I didn't know I could get it on my TV. I just figured that out Sunday. And so I was jonesing on fence of YouTubes. But, Joe, I remember calling on his dad when I was with General Wire, and they had this little small building, and I met Joe then, but he was, he kind of helped. I talked about Joe with gate operators.
Yeah.
Because he was young, and he's still young. But then I see what he's done in this short amount of time is incredible. So a guy like Joe, these podcasts, they're not just yapping. They're doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing it. They are real live guts. Oh my gosh, the guts they have. The courage, and and again, Fence Tech is in OKC.
Right.
You guys need to be coming because you get to meet Joe. Dan Wheeler. I haven't never met Dan Wheeler. I cannot wait to meet that guy because I enjoy his podcast. I look forward to every podcast on Monday. I listen to Dan Cannon.
Yep.
When him and Joe and all of them was on there the other day. First time I listened, I follow them now.
Yeah.
I just love that. And these are smart guys, and they're bringing our industry up. Our certifications, we're trying to get to where, they're just not, people respect the fence guy because we need respect.
Yeah.
Because we need younger people to want to do what we do.
Yep.
You're going to see some very, very successful people that are in the fence industry.
I totally agree. And I think a lot of our success here at Radius, I mean, you look at just where we've been in 9 or 10 months, and a lot of people like don't know the ins and outs, but to be able to go in that short period of time, create a 7-figure company, and like it is 100% because of all the resources that are available online, all the tools that we've got in. And that's, like I said, the advent of this entire experience, when we're talking to people like you, but on top of that, what people are going to see in episodes just in season 1 here up through the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the people that we have lined up, Randy, like the technologies that we're going to talk about, that we're going to be able to show all the guys and gals out there, like week in and week out. I mean, there are so many tools that can revolutionize a business, especially a young business, to make us just more relevant, to have a better experience for each one of our clients, each one of our customers. And then what does that do? That just produces more referrals and more brand awareness and comfort with it and stuff like that. And I think about the hustle of some of the different guys in the thing. I met Dan Blanc, I think last year or the year before, it was a couple of years ago. We up in Waverly, Nebraska. We were at Empire Fence and that event that they had.
I didn't know he was there. Maybe I missed.
Yeah, so he showed up, and I think him and Cannon had just really started doing the Facebook Live, and they were doing all that stuff. But him and I happened to be sitting at a table while all the classes are going on, and I was there with 3 guys from my Empire Fence out here in Tulsa, and he was there, I think, with Cannon, and we were working like side by side. And I remember he said later, he's like, I knew who you were, but then when I saw you working like your tail off right there in front of me, he was like, I knew I would like you. And I was like, it was so funny because I thought the same thing, because I was like, this guy just took like 7 calls. And of course my phone doesn't stop ringing. So I'm just doing the same thing. And we're on I'm on my iPad. He's got like 5 computers out. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I've got and I was just thinking like the chaos of the moment. But what's funny is it's in this giant, Matt Warner's giant, facility. And there's just 2 dudes, big old dudes sitting at this table, just hammering out business, both hundreds and thousands of miles away from home. And business doesn't stop.
No.
And, man, isn't that crazy to think that we're, and that's what I love about the industry now is, even if you're an installer out there in the field, if you're one of the young guys or an old guy and you're looking at those things, there's even things like you look at some of Sean King's tools, some of the tools that, ozfence.store sells. Like these guys and gals are looking at innovation through how we produce a fence that's changed so much, even in the last 5 years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is night and day different. I
remember when nail guns changed it, right?
Yeah, exactly. No more hammer. What? But yeah, I mean, now you've got, like, I look at the Luke Gibsons in that ag fence, and he has those Evos. He freaking puts up a fence by himself. I'm like, what? And then I watch the video and I'm like, this is actually one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And who would have thought, from a fence guy out in the middle of nowhere, Luke's doing his thing. And you're like, come on. Like, that excites me as a business owner, but even as someone in the business as young as I am still, I'm like, dude, this thing could be even more different in 5 years.
Oh yeah.
Which would be crazy. So that goes back to partnerships. And we'll kind of wrap up with a couple thoughts about that, because you mentioned Encon Electronics, and I'm familiar with them from when I got in the gate operator side of the business. I was still at Ameristar. Mm-hmm. So they sent me off to CAGOI school. It used to be here in Tulsa. Ameristar was a big partner. And I was one of the first 4 people from Ameristar to go through the process, go through the class and everything. Because they wanted to get into gate operators at the time. So this is 2011. And so I knew that I had to learn all the distributors and meet these people, like the Encon Electrics. Like, then we knew Door Kings and the Elites back then, and high security and all that stuff. And that personally, day to day, I deal with Jerry and Kyle over at Southwest Automated Security here in Tulsa. And I know you're a competitor, so we're going to like pretend Randy's not here right now, but I'm going to talk to everybody else. Yeah.
I love those
We've
guys.
all known each other. Yeah, we're all buddies, right? But like I looked at a company like Southwest Automated. So when I was the manager over at Allied Fence here in town, I met Jay, and Jay Elrod had come from Allied. Then he started the branch here for Southwest Automated, right? And in my first couple days at Allied, I was like, tell me more about our processes of ordering. And they're like, so we order from this company out of Dallas. They ship it up. It comes the next day typically. There is another distributor across the river here in town. We buy some fence stuff from them, but they have operators, which was Jameson, right? And then there's Southwest, which is a mile away. And Southwest Automated Security actually has the branch manager, is a guy that used to work here. So I met Jay. He actually, shout out to Jay, is the guy that got me into cigar smoking. So I'm a cigar smoker. It's because of Jay. I've actually gone to some events with him, side note, some really cool stuff we've done together. But he got me into that. So anyways, one of my vices, but like Jay's infield experience, like that was what I remembered about those guys back in the day, talking to those guys on the West Coast distributors, like that you could get someone on the phone that actually knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt with Southwest Automated. Ever since I started talking to Jay, and then I talked to Jerry, find out Jerry's background. He's from Florida. He put him in for 1,000,000 years. And I'm like, dude, like we all in this together, all these guys have all this infield experience. So the technical knowledge, the ability to sell and understand what we're trying to sell. And then as materials move and products move, the company shifts and stuff. And I think that's, you look at the success and the building of someone like a Southwest, and where they've gone, it's just really encouraging to me as a small business owner to be partnered with someone like that, where I can see like the future. And, then there's other guys like you guys at Binford and everyone else looking to kind of go in, ride those coattails and develop your own systems. And I think that's good because as the markets elevate, as we all, especially a distributorship, as they see the value of the guys like the techs.
Yeah.
And what they can bring to the table, or they don't. Because we've seen other guys that have tried and they just don't quite make it, because those of us that have done it in the field are like, yeah, kind of sheep's and wolf clothing, wolf and sheep's clothing. You're like, yeah, I'm going to go buy from this other guy that, actually knows what he's talking about. Or, so that goes back to having these classes, having these schools. Like you can learn so much. I learned how to put in a gate operator in 1 week because I went to the CAGOI. Mm-hmm. So to date, even if you guys have people out there in the future and you see the CGAT test or the course, which is Certified Gate Automated Technician, it's a week-long thing. It's expensive, right? But it gives the foundation of anyone with any type of mechanical aptitude to immediately go through that whole thing, and they can go out the next week and they could put in a gate operator.
Absolutely. I just went through that, as you know, in November.
Right, yeah.
And, I've been putting in gate operators 30 years, and it was invaluable.
Oh, man.
It was invaluable. And again, you meet the most wonderful people, and you see where our industry is coming. I mean, there's 20-somethings there. If I could give a little bit of a plug for that school, old school guys were like, I remember back in the 80s when they first started the fence school, I'm like, dude, I'm not spending $3,000 for somebody to learn how to build fence, I mean, we can do that here. I was such an idiot. And you've got to invest in your people. And I tell you, I watch these young guys down there. I've told people the biggest thing that I think, these young people are so proud of being a fence guy, so proud of being a gate operator installer. I mean, you can't put a number on that. They are so excited to come back and show you what they have learned. They just feel like they're a journeyman plumber or a journeyman electrician or whatever, and they're ready to go to work and they're fired up. So I would encourage people, if you do send somebody there, when they come back, don't squash them.
Yeah.
Don't take away that energy.
Yeah.
Because for every exciting person, there's somebody there to say, "Oh yeah, right, that's stupid. I could have done." Forget about that.
Right.
It's an investment in your people, and it is worth every penny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, buddy, as I say every time, we're going to put a little bow tie on this thing, wrap this thing up nice and pretty. Is there anything else you want to share with everyone real quick about?
Well, I hope to see everyone in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet you.
Yeah.
We all meet somebody we're excited to meet. I've never done a podcast,
Hey-o.
and I'm really excited to
He's
be part of
looking for more.
Nathan's, and so this was fun. I hope I didn't make too big a fool of myself.
No, you
but
did great,
thanks,
man.
Nathan.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate
hanging
you.
out some time with me, and hopefully you guys got a lot out of Randy's story, understanding where he comes from, his background, and just some of the changes that have happened in the industry overall, just as gate operators and what that looks like from, we'll get in other episodes, we'll get more into like the UL 325, the ASTM F2200, but just understanding again, the shifts in the industry, I think is vital for each one of us that are in this day to day, or even contracting in general. Again, there are things that are happening because of technologies out there, because of social media and the sharing of information that is creating, businesses going at a light speed today more than it ever has been. And that's exciting for someone like me. And I hope everyone out there watching this and listening is excited about what's on the horizon and what's coming. And we are looking to get into a lot of fun technology stuff over the next couple weeks and going into Fence Tech. So sign up for Fence Tech, AmericanFenceAssociation.com. Check that out. Come on. If you're a member, if you sign up to be a member, you can come to the exhibit floor Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for completely free if you're a member. So I highly encourage anyone across the United States, anywhere, sign up to be a member of the American Fence Association. Come on out. Join us in Oklahoma City. It's going to be a blast. There's a lot of fun things going on there, a lot of technologies and a lot of innovations that we're going to see. And like I said, especially on the gate operator side, as Randy knows, this stuff changes every year. I mean, some of the things that we're seeing with these cellular technologies, with solar technologies, there's even some classes. There was one I read today. I was looking at one of them that said solar power for access control. And I immediately said, "You're speaking my love language."
Yeah.
I mean, I was so freaking, I think it's right after my class that I teach on Wednesday morning. I was like, can I sign up for this? So I'm on the website. I want to do, because there's been so many times, and you and I have talked about this in the past, where we're sitting there going, there are opportunities, especially if you have areas like Oklahoma, which is all across the United States, but you get outside of these urban areas, and there's just a lot of chances for you to get into solar technology devices. And then how are they connected? And then creating a network at a home, at a business, at all these places to do that. So anyways, lots of fun stuff on the horizon. I look forward to seeing each of you. Holler at us. If you guys have any questions, as always, feel free to send an email over to info@protectingyourradius.com. Hit us up on social media. Do all the stuff. Rob's got all the stuff going. And hey,
Randy the Fence Guy on Instagram.
Hey, Randy at Randy the Fence Guy on IG. And we will check you guys on the next episode. See ya.
You've been listening to the Protecting Your Radius podcast from the LuxCore Studios in Bixby, Oklahoma. Thanks for sticking around. And connect with us and all of our partners at www.protectingyourradius.com. We want to thank our premier partners. LuxCore, the newest line of premium quality composite infill to slide into your fence track fence system. Frame your style today. Also, Stain Track, the world's first patented standalone stain machine. Utilizing flood coat technology, StainTrack covers boards, pickets, posts, and any type of dimensional wood you can think of. And what better way to use your StainTrack machine than to use the easy application Wood Defender family of stains. Wood Defender goes on easy and covers in one coat with no back brushing. And of course, the true power of our show is you, the listener. Please rate and review our show on whatever platform you consume this content. Your 5-star likes and reviews help other contractors get the message that we all want to be better and do better. And in the construction world, we can never forget that before you can be great, you've got to be good. Before you can be good, you've got to be bad. But before you can even be bad, you've got to try.